Friends, we are going to begin the funeral service. I'll put the register book out after the service if you have not signed yet. If I could ask everyone to please stand over by the tent, and individuals who are going to serve as pallbearers, please go by the hearse, and everyone else please come this way.
Maybe Dad would like to say
extra seats if some in the back row, somebody needs to sit. You try and get in the shade. Friends, we are going to begin the funeral service. For Mr. Myron Markovitz. If you have a cell phone, I'd ask you kindly to place it in the silent mode at this time or turn it completely off. Services will be conducted by Rabbi Barry Schechter of Congregation Kol Eved in Skokie.
Mizmor David Adonai mi yagub yolecha mi yishkom behar kodshecha holech tamim ufoel tzedek v'dover emet bilevavo lo ragah lo leshono lo asal reihu ra v'cherpa lo nasa lekrovo nirse beinav nimas v'et yerei Adonai yechabed nishpa l'ara v'lo yamir Kaspo lo natan ben neshech ושוחד על נקיר לקח. על שירא לא ימות לעולם. God, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain, those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others, or wrong them, or bring shame upon them, who give their word and come what may do not retract, who do not exploit others. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. Dear friends, we're here for a sad and very difficult occasion to say goodbye, which is one of the most difficult things we can ever do, but also to pay tribute and to honor the memory, and even if possible, to celebrate the life of Myron, Mike Markovitz, the son of Ida and Lou, Michael, Ben, Chaya Hanida, the Lou, who's gone to his eternal rest too early, and who leaves behind family and friends and colleagues who really, really loved him very, very dearly. First, I should mention Jan, his late wife, to whom we said goodbye just a few years ago. She's here. He's with her here now. We have with us here, of course, people, as I say, who loved him. His loving partner, Debbie. His cousin, Michael, and his Rhoda, and their children, Stacy and her Shia, and Jason, and his Emily. And the grandchildren, their grandchildren, Miles and Charlie and Sylvie, and as I say, many, many others. A lot of you are here for all different reasons. Your family, you worked with him, and if you worked with him, then you became his friend, and there are people who are here who's not just the friends, but the friends, partners, wives, so many people. And we're going to hear from the family. First, I'm going to call Michael. Where are you, Michael? Oh, here, you're right in front of me, of course. My wife always tells me I can't see what's in front of me. You have the evidence now. Come along, Michael.
Good morning, and thank you for being here to honor my cousin. My cousin was born Myron Markovitz, but he often called himself, and he felt more comfortable using Mike. And we've been very, very close for many, many years. And he called himself Senior, and he called me Junior. He felt that I was truly his brother and not his first cousin. My cousin lived a strange yet full life. He came from a dysfunctional family. His father, Lou, was a bus driver, and his mother worked, but his father had an alcohol problem and didn't spend very much time with him. So Myron felt abused, and it caused him years, his whole life, of pain and anguish, which he hopefully is at peace with. He left home at the age of 16 and essentially raised himself. He went to the University of Illinois in Champaign, Urbana, and he decided to go on to law school, where he went for a year and decided it wasn't for him. And then he was a recruiter, a headhunter, and he was successful at that. He went into leasing, and he was very successful, extremely successful at that. He worked at GE for some time, and they were very demanding, and he did learn the business, and he learned a part of the business that he had never known. He learned how to do credits, although he wasn't a credit person. And then one day, he had a conversation with a gentleman named Bert Fields. And Bert, and he had an interview for MD Bank, and he got a job where he was there for 20-some years. He was extremely, extremely successful. The last 10 years plus, he did $300 to $400 million per year. He was given no clients. It was given no bank business. Whatever business he got, he had to bring in. And most of the deals, all the deals really were 4-year deals. So if you figure 300 or 400 million over a 4-year period, it's roughly $1 billion runoff or so, or run rate. So he was very successful. My cousin adored his wife, Jan, who he lived with for many years before he got married. Neither of them wanted kids, and Jan came up from a similar background as Mike came from. Jan was a superstar at everything she did. She was the head of speech pathology in a combined school district in Park Ridge and I can't recall the other suburb, but my wife and I were close with both of them. We took vacations, we went out to dinner, we went to their house, they went to our house, they knew our family. Our family was their family, and thankfully I'm lucky enough to be blessed with 3 great grandchildren. In any event, Jan got sick. She retired, and within 2 years, she got glioblastoma. She never retired though. She was invited back and got a job in the same school district, and she worked part-time. However, she got a nasty brain cancer called glioblastoma, and it was Mike felt that it was his duty and obligation to try to help his loved one, his partner in crime, and to rebuild essentially Humpty Dumpty. And that couldn't be done, but he tried his hardest. And he put her into the fanciest, most expensive nursing home, in the largest. She had a private room, and he got her full-time care himself at his own expense. There was nothing that Jan couldn't have. He was trying to rebuild Jan, which he couldn't do, and ultimately Jan passed away 4 or 5 years ago. But Jan never left his heart. He talked about her to me, about Jan, all the time. And today I assume that he'll be with Jan forever. On Tuesday, I picked up my phone. Twice to call him. And I realized that we would never speak again. Myron, you will always be my heart, in my family's heart, my wife's heart. I will never forget you, and I will always try to honor your memory. Thank you.
And now Jason will speak to us.
Myron was my father's first cousin, and I think that made him my first cousin once removed. But for as long as I can remember, he's always been my uncle. When I was younger, my Uncle Myron was the adult I felt most comfortable talking to about the things going on in my life. We'd share stories about partying in Chicago after college, dating, and dropping out of law school. In my 30s, those conversations evolved into marriage and financial advice and discussions about our favorite foods. Looking back, we talked a lot more about the things pertinent to my life, but he could always hang no matter what we were talking about, and he always had an amazing story or advice regardless of the topic. It seems obvious now he was just trying to relate to me, but I never noticed because he did so seamlessly despite being 40 years my elder, and because I was probably too self-absorbed to notice otherwise. Myron and I went out for dinners, a lot of them. That was our thing. He took me to some of the best restaurants in the city and introduced me to new foods like oysters, which became a staple. But my favorite of all of our dinners was when Myron invited me and my new girlfriend Emily, now my wife, over to his house to have dinner with him and Jan. By that point, Jan was very ill and in and out of the hospital. And on that particular night, she was in the hospital. Regardless, Myron had us over, and he was determined to create a special night for us, despite Jan's glaring absence. He disappeared into his basement at one point and reemerged with a bottle of wine that was older than I was. To this day, it's the best wine I've ever tasted. I was so preoccupied with the wine that I almost didn't notice him carrying a tray of 13 gigantic ribeye steaks outside to the grill. Emily and I kind of shared a confused look, unsure why Myron was cooking what looked like half a cow for 3 people. When the steaks were done, he placed one on a plate for me, one for Emily, and one for himself. Then he gave one each to his 2 dogs. The other 8 steaks, those went to the 2 full-time caretakers that were at the house taking care of Jan. Share them with your families, he said. The steaks were absolutely delicious, but that's not the reason that it was my favorite of all of our dinners. It's a memory of Myron I'll always have and cherish. Our last dinner was probably 2 or 3 weeks before he went into the hospital. I showed up 20 minutes early to ensure we got a table outside, but to my surprise, Myron was already there waiting for me when I arrived. We shared laughs and talked about family and gushed about how much we meant to each other. I told him the story of the night he cooked 13 steaks for 3 people. He smiled. When the check came, I made an attempt to pay for one of our dinners for the very first time, and he laughed it off and slipped the waiter his credit card just as he always did. On our way to our cars, we planned our next dinner. After Jan died, Myron struggled greatly, not only with the loss of his best friend and love of his life, but with greater questions like, what happens to us after we die, and where is Jan now? He sought the guidance of therapists, clergymen, and rabbis. The last time I saw Myron was in the hospital the night he died. I don't know if he could understand me or not at that point, but I told him that I loved him and that I always considered him a second dad. I told him that selfishly, I wanted him to get better and to come home. But if he had to go be with Jan, I understood, and I didn't know where he was going. But when I get there, we'll get dinner.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Now, Stacy, would you like to speak to us as well?
So I decided that I just wanted to say a little something from my heart. So, Myron was also my uncle. Well, he was my cousin once removed, as Jason said, but he was kind of like my fun uncle, or he really was like a second father to me. And him and Jan I was really close with them. Very, very, very close when I was, growing up. And when I went to college, they were so supportive. I mean, they went to every single family, family day. They went to every single graduation, every single important milestone. They were there with bells and whistles, just celebrating me. When I went to grad school, it's the same thing. They would drive all the way to Madison, Wisconsin, just because they were so proud of me, and they really did love me, and I loved them. And when I graduated from grad school and moved to the city, Jan and Myron would call me up, and they would just be kind of like that fun second parent kind of thing. And they would say, "Oh, we're in the city. Let's go, here, let's go there. Let's go to the peninsula. We're going to have high tea. Come bring a friend." And it was always such a fun adventure with them. We always had great conversations, meaningful conversations. As Jason said, Myron introduced him to all kinds of new foods, and he also introduced me to oysters. And the memory that I always had of Myron is that he wanted everyone to be enjoying life around him to the fullest. Like, when he ordered, he would order everything on the menu. And you would say that you were full and you couldn't take one more bite. And then at that point of the night, he would order the lobster mac and cheese and demand that you just take that bite because it was so delicious. And he was right, it really was. And then after, you took the bite, and you could see on his face that he was so pleased, because it made him so happy to see other people happy. And then behind, your back, he would order a separate meal just so you could go home with that other lobster mac and cheese and enjoy it later. And that was kind of who Myron was. And I just want to say that I love him very much. I'll miss him very much. And he really was like he was my dad's first cousin, but he really was more like his brother and his best friend. And I know that he meant so much to my family, and he meant so much to my father, and therefore he meant so much to us as well. And we'll all miss him very much.
Thank you, Stacey. And now, as I said, we have a lot of people here who worked with Myron. We can only have we're going to have one of them to speak to us, Dennis, who was with him for many, many years and whom I'd met through Myron, through Mike. Dennis, please.
Thank you, Rabbi. I guess I'm representing everybody that has come from MB Financial Bank, which is quite a few people. First of all, Debbie, thank you for putting Mike's beautiful picture. I think this picture of him smiling represents what Mike was all about. Jovial, outgoing, totally a people person. If you knew Mike and you would develop a relationship with him, he was your friend for life. He would do anything for you. I think I share that thought with a lot of people that knew him at the bank. And I've known him for 20 years. Had some great experiences working in the same department with him, which was a pleasure. I mean, he was a motivator. He was a salesman. He loved to do deals. I was sharing some of my thoughts with Rabbi. But he was a people person. He liked to network with his customers. He would do anything for his customers at the bank. But my wife Corey and I had the pleasure of traveling with Mike and Jan on 2 wonderful European trips over the years, and got to know them very well. Mike loved to travel. I think he did several other countries afterward too. I think he went to Italy and maybe some other countries. But so my wife and I had some wonderful experiences with them. And then, of course, at the bank, we had some really nice conventions together. We would have MB dinners and social things that Mike attended every time. He would invite customers to dinner every time they were in town. But he was really a totally an outgoing person. And I think that fun loving and like like it was mentioned before, going out to dinner and just he was involved with sales and networking so much that was his life. And I think that's his background with other companies came from that too. But we're privileged to know him for all these years. I remember that one person in particular, Sam Lastrosio, who he worked with at GE Capital for many years, kind of summed up what Mike's personality was. And he really said that Mike truly had a heart of gold, and he would be your friend forever. So Mike, we love you. Hopefully things, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis and Michael and Jason and Stacy. I met Mike, strangely, here. Well, actually, just prior to here. What happened was this. He wanted to have a dedication and unveiling of a gravestone for Jan. And the rabbi of the synagogue he had gone to was not available. So the funeral home that you work for, Peggy, contacted me. And so I called him and I said, look, can we sit down and talk and you'll tell me about Jan? And he came to my home in Morton Grove, and we sat down, and I just intended to talk about Jan. This is a very Mike story. I just intended to talk about Jan, but he said, oh, you have a piano. Who plays the piano? So I said, my wife, Julie. Oh, I'd like to hear her. Well, I said, she's not here at the moment. Well, when's she coming? Is this familiar to you, this kind of conversation? He said to me, do you like jazz? I said, well, I actually like classical music. I like a bit of jazz. My wife really likes jazz. He said, oh, well, when is she coming? Now you have to tell me when she's coming. And we sat and we talked and we talked and we talked. We did talk about Jan, and I took notes, of course. I wanted to know as much as I could about her. But we talked about lots of other things. We also talked about a subject that I hadn't intended to talk about, namely me. He kept on asking questions about me. He wanted to know about me. And I forget how long we talked for. We were there for ages, and it was delightful. It was absolutely delightful. And then we would get together, we would meet for lunch and dinner. I never had any of the oysters, by the way, but then I'm a rabbi, and so professional etiquette, do you understand? Anyway, so then we would meet often, and then, of course, he wasn't well, and I did what many of you here did. I would visit him when he had the heart problems at different hospitals in the city and in the suburbs. And it was always wonderful to meet him. He was very generous. He was very generous to my synagogue, to Kolemeth in Skokie, for which I'm eternally grateful. But I'm eternally grateful just for knowing him, because we think of this man, and you mentioned, growing up not easy, and then he makes a life for himself, a professional life that is a great success, and he finds love with Jan, and then Debbie, you found each other, and what a blessing that was for both of you, that you had each other, and how good you were for each other. I know he loved, you mentioned about feeding the dogs some very expensive steaks. Yes, so the dogs, I'm just trying to see if I have the names of the dogs here, because they don't deserve a mention. Well, there's Nicholas now, is that correct? And before there was Jack, right, and Joe. I'm sorry? And there were many, many other dogs. I mean, there's a fantastic canine history there in the family. He said something to me about Jan and him, which I found very interesting and very touching. He said, she made me a better person. Which is a wonderful thing, not just to say, but to be able to say. To be able to say that, you know. It's not that easy to say, to admit even to oneself, but to tell others about it. I think that's lovely. He also liked to play drums. I think there are drumsticks in the casket. He, I think his father, we just saw Lou. Lou liked to play the drums. In fact, on Lou's gravestone, there's a picture of a drum. So he loved people. Well, you've heard about that. I mean, look at this. I'm a rabbi. I meet him just to do one thing and become friends. And that story is replicated for many, many, many of you here who are not family. But when it comes to the family, of course, it's a love and a bond that is so close it's beyond description. Now, I want to close with this. There's a very nice story in the Talmud. It's not a story, actually. Well, maybe it is. I don't know how seriously I can take it. You will not believe it when I tell you, but I promise you it's in the Talmud. That after we die, when a person dies, there are all kinds of descriptions of what will be asked. Were you honest in business? That he aces that. But there's another rabbi who says this: a person will have to give account for any foods that he could have eaten and didn't eat. It's in the Talmud, I promise you, and if you want the reference, I'll give it to you. Now, I don't know if they included oysters in that, but let's leave that aside. It's in the Talmud after all. However, he not only aces that, he passes that part of the examination that unfortunately we have to go through after. I thought I'd finish after grad school. I thought I'd take my last exams, then I learned this. Anyway, this exam, he not only he comes top of the world in this one, because from what you've told me, he not only enjoyed every kind of food, he introduced, I was always going to say he introduced oysters to you, he introduced you to all kinds of food, and didn't just introduce you in the sense of feeding it you once, he would do it for you. But listen, remember what you said, for you, for the people he worked, who were looking after him, working in the house, for their families. Look at that mixture of love of life, of enjoying the things that are there in life, but also the generosity of sharing, and not just sharing with close family, sharing with everyone. He was a lovely, lovely man. His loss is a terrible shock. And it is a loss. It's a loss for me personally. It's a loss for many, many people, especially for those who are sitting here. Peggy mentioned my synagogue is in Skokie, but we also have services online. And if anyone is interested, this Friday night, and Saturday morning for that matter, I will mention his name. That's Friday. It is Friday. I've lost myself. Tonight and tomorrow morning, we'll mention his name before we say the Kaddish. And if anyone's interested, I will send you the link. You can come to the synagogue in Skokie, but if you can't, I'll send you the link and you can just come on and join. You will hear his name mentioned before we say the Kaddish, tonight and tomorrow. And now we're going to read the 23rd Psalm. If you'll join me, please. These little booklets, if you open them, it's at the top on the left. Please read with me. The Lord is my shepherd. Everyone, come on. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'm going to recite the El Malei Rachamim. We usually stand for this. If you can, please stand. If it's difficult for you to stand, perfectly okay, stay seated. Please don't stand if it's difficult. El Malei Rachamim, Sholchein Bamramim, Ametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanefe Ashina, B'malot Kidashim Otorim, Kezohar Kiamazirim, Et Nishmat, Myron, Mike, Ben Chaya Nida, Velu, Shalach Leolamo, Bavur, She'anach Nodrim Litzdaka, Ve'yad Askarat Nishmato, Began Eden, Tehei Menuchato, Lachein Barachamim, Yastireu Besete Ganafav Leolamim, V'yitzeror Mitzror et Nishmato, Adonai Unachalato, V'yanua B'shalom Mishkavo, V'nomar Amen. Passionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your shuddering presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, under the soul of Myron, Mike Markovitz, the son of Ida and Lou, who has entered eternity and in whose memory we offer charity. May his repose be in paradise. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say Amen. And now we will conclude the prayer part of the service with the Mourner's Kaddish, which is on the back of these booklets in Hebrew letters at the top of the page and in English letters in the middle of the page. You can join with this. If you don't join, you can respond. One of the responses is very, very simple. When we say, or when I say V'imru, you say Amen. When we say V'imru, you say Amen. So please do that, or if you know the other responses, do those as well, or if you can join with the whole thing, that's even better. Let's begin. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yamechon, v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, bagala uvizman kariv, V'imru, everyone, Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah, Mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnasei, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal. Shemei dekutsha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Friends, before we lower the casket, and later after the casket is lowered, we'll have a chance in Jewish tradition, as we always do, to place some earth on there. Anyone who wishes to is able to. But we also have something else. You know, Jewish people traditionally wanted to be buried in Israel, which obviously is not always possible. So we bring earth from Israel. This earth in this packet comes from the Har HaZeitim, the Mount of Olives, ancient and sacred cemetery on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. And I'm going to sprinkle this on the casket before we lower it. So Mike is going to be buried in Israeli earth. The gentlemen from the cemetery are going to lower the casket and then place a vault cover on top. This will take a few minutes. It's perfectly permissible to sit down while they're doing this, so if you wish, you can do that, whatever you feel comfortable doing.
I'd also like to invite everyone to the Markovitz residence, 5527 Old Wood Lane. Let me double check. 5527 Old Wood Lane in Long Grove, today from 1:30 until 7. That information is on your folders, the address as well as the hours. So if you didn't get a folder, please see us. Thank you.
There is a water here over there. If anyone would like to drink some water, please help yourselves to the water over there.
that's the overtime right overhead oysters, and they were the best oysters. Did you take Africa? Oh, really?
No, I haven't. I'm really worried about that.
Oh my God, I'm She's such a strong personality. She's so funny. That's home with Sylvie when it's a lot of Charlie. Charlie has a very strong personality. She's very intense. Like about everything. She's like intense.
Well, if Sylvie turns out to be super intense, then you can't just blame my genetics.
Oh,
Because I assume that Charlie's super intense because my side of the family, but I don't know.
we'll see.
We'll see.
Charlie's best.
Everything's like a really, like,
Oh my God.
she's like all in all the time.
Shia got chocolate rice cakes, and she put chocolate butter on it and put sprinkled chocolate chips.
Yeah, I think Jason was on FaceTime. Oh, yeah, you were there. That's right, you were there. Yeah, and Charlie. Oh my God, if you would have been there. She was. Oh, sorry. She said, as soon as she had it, she said, I have to try this. It's so good.
Friends, in just a minute, the gentlemen from the cemetery will have completed their work, and as I said, in Jewish tradition, we help to bury the person, the loved one that we're saying goodbye to. We traditionally take the shovel and put usually three measures of earth to show one or two would be really not enough, 3 or more. And then also traditionally, as I say, these are customs, we place the shovel back in the earth. We don't hand it on to the next person. But in any event, if you feel you are able to, please, yes. So why don't we have people come up, those who are very close, and come up. And just be careful, the ground is uneven. Please, please, please be careful and don't go too close. So anyone who wants to, please come up. There's more than one shovel. There's a shovel on the other side as well.
Also, the register book is back out if you'd like to come and sign. If anybody else wants to play surf, now is the time.
Just say, okay, I'll say this bit.
Yeah, let me see. Friends, hello, can I remind you, if you haven't had a chance to sign the book, please don't forget, it's right here in front of me, and there's a pen here. Please come and sign if you haven't signed already.
So I don't know the area. So I'll see you over there at Starbucks. Friends,
this does conclude the service. I want to wish you all well. And thank you for coming.
Well, I think you heard me.